here with Scott Kilmartin at the House of Hall, H-A-U-L, and the website, Scott?
Is hall.com.au.
Hall.com.au. Do you want to give us a very quick overview of what happens at the House of Hall?
We turn old advertising billboards and bus shelter posters and stadium boundary line signage into, we upcycle them into products for companies predominantly. So you've got 200 billboards in Australia, we can turn them into document satchels for your next conference or iPad covers for your field staff. We've also got a consumer-facing brand called Hall that we sell predominantly online and to selected retailers and design stores.
Around the world?
Around the world, yeah.
Excellent. And we're in Fitzroy North in Melbourne. And how old's you bootstrapped it from day one, but how old's the company been going for now?
Yeah, so it's an old one. We're actually 13 years old, but it was kind of a sideline or a hobby that turned into a sideline that turned into a business. So it's been going for a long time, but not always in this kind of. It's really kind of is. It's been like it is now for about 5 years.
But I'd say even though you're 13 years old, you're still like a startup. You're still innovative. You're still bootstrapping to a certain degree. You're still doing innovative things in terms of marketing, which is some of the things I want to talk about today with you. Would that be fair?
Yeah, look, we're a completely bit different business to what I started. I mean, when I started out, we were predominantly turning old number plates, Australian number plates, chopping them up and turning them into covers for photo albums and selling basically into a kind of a tourism and a gift market. So, it was the in the parents' garage in Tasmania and selling them behind a card table at a stall at Salamanca Market on a Saturday. Went to some trade shows, we sold to stores then, but we were pretty much a one-trick pony for a while. It was the kind of, doing it at night after hours type stuff. We're now... we've completely flipped that business. Even 3 years ago, most of the business was predominantly wholesale, and then online. And now we wholesale. We still wholesale, but to a much less degree. And the corporate aspect, where we're kind of helping companies, I guess, show their green credentials and keep their advertising materials out of waste matter, out of landfill. So we're pretty much a different business. I mean, we still look and feel, I guess, like we did back in the day, but in terms of the business model, it's we're dealing with multinationals now, the big banks, the big car companies. So it's a very different beast than standing behind a car table at Salamanca Market.
And there's some of the products behind you.
Yeah, so behind you can see a wall of a great wall of Hall, as we call it. They're all MacBook cases made from old advertising billboards.
And each one's different, so they're all unique products.
So the big, I guess, to use a bit of marketing speak, the USP for us is that no two are ever the same. Even two products that we've cut from the same billboard, they're going to have different parts of the artwork that was on that billboard displayed. So no two are ever the same. So we always kind of joke, if you walk up the street in Sydney, Stockholm or Shanghai, no one's ever going to have exactly the same product you've got. It's a legitimate one-off.
If only women going to major balls or major events, they turn up wearing the same frock, for example. That's not going to be the case for this.
No. So they are, and that I think, from our customer base, some buy because of the green aspect. Predominantly, I guess that's the thing that gets them to the cash register or gets them to hit buy on their screen. The other one would be the individualness, and I guess there's never only one reason you buy something. It's always a combination of factors. But for different groups, there'd be the two predominant things that get them over the line. And the fact that a good chunk of our products are still made in Australia. That's a rarity.
Now, I want to focus a bit on the way you market your brand. Brand is very important to you in terms of keeping a consistency. Do you want to walk us a little bit through, what is the whole brand? What does it stand for? What's your, I guess, philosophy of branding?
Yeah, so look, I look at us as being a streetwear brand that uses green materials. So there's a really good backstory in our stuff, and that backstory is, it's not just here's the product, it's how it was made, the materials it's made from. So the stuff that I try and do in terms of communicating those brand factors, I guess, to our punters, to our consumer base, is show people in various ways the backstory. So we take a lot of we use a lot of imagery to show the billboards that were up, things getting us loading them up when we're collecting them from companies, getting them cut on the cutting table, how they're cut, the washing process, and then and then going out with our showing the sewers actually making and assembling the product. So imagery, I mean, we're a design brand, so imagery is really important, and people want to, and for people that are going to buy our stuff, and our stuff's more expensive than similar products out there. One, because it's because of the nature of the materials. There's a lot of extra handling and individual cutting. You can't stack 5 bits of material and cut them all out at once. They're all cut one by one by one, and so we've got to really show that and emphasise the value in what comes with that kind of handmadeness, I guess. And so I use as many mediums as we can. I mean, social media has been a boom for my business. Being able to have just little quick snippets during the day, little Twitter remarks, and show images of what we're doing, new stuff, different things we're doing, whether it be a window display in the store or having our guys up we've got a little photo studio here in North Fitzroy, having them shooting all the products individually that go up on our website. So all that, the backstory stuff has been really big for a brand like mine.
So can you walk us through, you're probably an early adopter on Twitter. How long have you been on Twitter?
Early 2008.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have, how do you juggle the accounts? So you've got your own personal one, you've got one for the store, which is for the brand, at Hall, and you've also got a very friendly dog who is your ambassador, Gus the Boxer,
Sure.
who has, among other channels, he's got probably more channels than Hall itself.
More popular than all
More
of us,
popular than everyone. And we'll sort of try and see if we get some footage of Gus shortly. But how does one work out to bring a boxer into the branding process?
So, the good thing about being on Twitter relatively early was that there was still pure brand names out there. So we are at Hall, which is great. You don't have to have the AU on the end or Hall Design. So that was a win on a few levels. One, but having a really short Twitter handle gives you a bit more space to write your message as well. I was initially using Twitter personally, so I'm at Scott Kilmartin on Twitter, and it was just curiosity for me. I started seeing that it became a bit of a news source. The people that I were interested in that were using Twitter at that time were putting up interesting stuff that I wouldn't have found elsewhere or would have taken me a lot longer to find. And then I started to think that Twitter's got some legs as a way of getting our products in front of some people or getting them looking at our story, being interested in our story. Again, one of our most successful products has been making MacBook cases. When you're selling a computer case and you're talking about it or showing imagery of how it's made on a medium where everyone's got to have a computer to play on it, then it's a bit of a no-brainer that there's going to be some interest there. And we got a real community. We got lots of people that were retweeting our stuff, that were asking a lot of questions online about how we design things. We had people, suggesting designs, and so the way I try and use the accounts differently. My personal one, which is very separate to the business one, is just me talking about my hopeless football club, bad customer service, interesting things I've seen during the day. The Hall one I try and use it's predominantly talking about our brand. We don't do every tweet as talking about me as the brand. We try and do maybe 1 in 3. So we mention things like what's going on in the local community here, what's going on in design, some interesting stuff. Some other kind of fellow travellers in a similar space to us will tweet about them or retweet their stuff. And I guess I really tried to embed some humour and a little bit of kind of attitude, so it wasn't very straight or formal. It wasn't like walking into Myers and having someone say, "Hello, sir, how may I help you?" We wanted to be the reverse of that. So I found Twitter and the imagery. We put up some cheeky or some funny images, and that seems to work for us. It's a bit. Talking about being human, it definitely adds a real touch to it, and people responded that way. I don't think they got the idea that I'm talking to a big faceless company or talking to someone in a call centre that was running a Twitter account that was all very formal.
So authenticity is a big play for you guys.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, the showing the backstory of how our stuff's made is, I guess, the biggest part of that, and the way you tell that is also kind of it adds to that and makes that grow. Now Gus the boxer. So I've got a white boxer dog. He's come with me since he was a baby. Come out to when we had warehouses. When I was out delivering back in the day when I was putting orders in my van and delivering to retailers, he would come out. And the retailers kind of bond with this dog. They'll be like, if you're going to come out today, my kids are going to be here. Make sure you bring the dog. So the dog thing was...
No one wanted to see you.
No, not at all. I mean, we still sometimes joke when we first moved into North Fitzroy. People are like, oh, what's the name of you see someone in the street, what's the name of your company? We're like, oh, Hall, we're in North Fitzroy Village. They look at you kind of quizzically, and then I go, oh, shop with a dog in the window. And, of course, the eyes light up, the penny drops. So not everyone's a dog person, but... It's one of those things where we added a little bit of character and a little bit of going about some relatively normal transactional stuff a little bit differently. So Gus was in the shop and people were kind of coming in asking about the dog, would ring if the dog was around. So when we created a Twitter account for him, and it's part dog nutter stuff and part stuff around Hall, like he'll be like, hold my calls, I'm going to go and have a snooze for 3 hours. And or people will tweet, hey, do you have any MacBook cases in purple? I can't see any on your site. Instead of having Hall tweet back to them, we'll have Gus tweet back to them and go like, hi, I'm Gus, your personal stylist. We've got 2 purple ones here in the store. And people think that's a bit odd, but it's curious odd.
And it's part of the brand.
It is. So, and then, people will come in and then, look, we have people that send emails going, hey, I got my stuff, thank Gus for packing it. People buy into that stuff, and
they embrace it.
It is, and it's fun, and look, even so customer service at times can be fairly dry, and lots of that, and you don't want to be just going, hey, we've got a new special, here's our new products, buy. So having the dog talk about stuff, or having the dog give his view about what's going on in the shop or in the business or in the photo studio or whatever. Instead of saying it's hot and sweltering in the photo studio, Gus will say that and go, it's too hot for me, I'm going back downstairs, you carry on as you were. He talks about the staff as his minions, that he doesn't do any work and that they all do things for him, and people get a laugh out of that.
He's a bit snarky too.
He is. So I kind of, people like, how did you design a character for Gus? And I'm like, well, I used to, remember back when we were kids, Simon Townsend's Wonderworld, for those that are a little bit older, they had a character called Angry on there, the Aggro. And Aggro was this puppet that was very cheeky with all the presenters, and so Gus has got a bit of that kind of, that aggro about him type scenario, and a bit of the touchy-feely, cuddly stuff as well.
But you've extended it now. Obviously, how many followers on Twitter has he got?
Oh, he's got a couple of thousand on Twitter and maybe 1,500-ish on Facebook.
On Facebook, yeah. So he's active on Facebook,
yeah.
And got his own calendar.
He's got a calendar, yeah.
Calendar, yeah.
So we did the calendar actually came through the social media stuff. Some people that I met online, Valerie Koo, Gina Melinchula, who's a photographer. Valerie runs about 10 businesses. She's got the Sydney Writers Centre, and she also writes one of the small business enterprise columns for Fairfax Media in the Sydney Morning Herald and the AFR and the Age. They are dog people as well, and so Valerie, I guess I found Valerie on Twitter because she followed Gus, and the way that the calendar came about was that somehow someone suggested doing a calendar for charity, and Gina's a photographer and a really good one, and she shot it. Valerie helped promote it and made all the kind of bits of it stick together. And we shot a calendar and sold it for Lord Smith, the pet hospital here in North Melbourne. And it was, the concept was basically kind of footballer beefcake, meets kind of, I don't know, James Bond with tongue firmly planted in cheek. So it was, it was a dog in bonds as opposed to a footballer with his shirt off showing his undies. So it was a good laugh, and we used Twitter and Gus's followers to come up with a caption for each photo for each month.
So crowdsourcing the captions. And then so what we did was the winning caption was the one that went under the photo, and then under the days of the month, the bottom part of the calendar, we put all the outtakes, if you like. This one got second and third or whatever it was. We'll try and put some in the show notes. We'll put some links to some of his outposts, I suppose.
Yes.
But it's also led to media publicity, so he's been in a lot of the metropolitan newspapers, and then there is a link back to Hall, so it's not just you know, you having a bit of fun, which you're doing anyway, but there is a genuine business side of this in terms of branding and marketing.
Look, it is. I mean, we don't sell, you know, pet products. We used to make some dog collars and things, but we're not. It's not a direct sell. It's a bit of fun around the brand, and it definitely does, you know, paint the brand in an interesting light. And
this is business. You're not allowed to have fun.
Yeah, that's it. But I mean, it's something that it's one of those things I was probably going to do anyway with a dog, and it just happened that he is probably the right looking type of dog, and you can have a bit of attitude with him because he's a kind of a bigger dog. Where if he was a fluffy little Chihuahua, possibly it wouldn't work. Yeah. But yeah, look, we've got more media than we would have got having him because you know. Gus ended up on the front page of The Age online for, you know, the best part of a day. But basically, you know, it was a story about, you know, how a dog is a spokesperson for a brand, and that got us media that, you know, you wouldn't get in, you know, in other sources just with a normal story. And
David Meerman Scott, who's a New York Times best-selling author, and when he was out here, you met him, but he loved the dogs. He loved the dog story, or the Gus the Boxer story, and Absolutely. He's got a very popular blog called webinknow.com, and wrote a beautiful piece some months back.
Yeah, look, and they're all, I mean, and so that was that's a classic example of it. Was, you know, probably about a third of that story was about Hall, a third of it was about Gus being the face of Hall, and then Gus how he promotes it, and how, you know, there's a lot of ways to go about something, and who would, you know, not every business is going to have a dog or an animal as the face of it, but if you've got something that's a little bit interesting or unusual, then those things can. Yeah, they can
differentiate.
Yeah, and your customers love that because it's not plain, and it's a little bit unusual. And you know, David wrote a fabulous piece, and it is one of those ones where, you know, those little stories perpetuate other stories as well. I mean, Gus has been. We had a woman that wrote a story in a national HR magazine about pets at work and how they're a calming influence on staff. Now, are we going to do many sales out of being in an HR magazine? Well, probably not, but you never know. But it's general interest stuff that's getting our brand in companies that, you know, may or may not see something, and they might be companies that have billboards, and maybe someone reads that, and we end up in the marketing department. You just don't know.
Well, everyone's a potential customer.
Exactly, and it was one of those ones too where, you know, we'll retweet that as, you know, Gus will be like, I gave an exclusive interview to a marketing magazine, like he's Bono, you know, and we get a laugh out of that. Now, customers
is that a pun, Bono?
Well, but it's one of those ones where, you know, all those little bits of media give you another story, another snippet of a story to put out there.
So it's multi-dimensional. Isn't that a word? Multi-dimensionalising the brand.
Make it up as you go. Mate.
I like that. Yeah. I like that.
I mean, even today, so you're here interviewing me. Gus will probably tweet, I mean, I don't want to put words in the dog's mouth, but he'll probably tweet something along the lines of, you know, Trevor came out to interview me, but I stepped through and I had one of my minions do it. He'll put something along those lines out there. So it's loosely, it's self-promoting in one way. It's me. But instead of us going, hi, I just did an interview with Trevor Young, it gives you another way of you know, framing that up.
Well, I mean, classic PR is third-party endorsement. You've got an in-house third-party endorser for you, so you can't lose there.